We are now live. This is Dr. Paul with Jeremy Fox, and we are announcing the new Glasses Club.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Beginning with humor. Um, like your glasses, Jeremy.
Thank you. Like yours too. I've got a lot of glare and I don't care really. I've got my light bars of magic here.
That's actually an old thing I used to say to people socially. If they were wearing glasses, I would go up to them and say, "Hey, would you like to join my Glasses Club?"
Oh, that's funny. That's some pickup game. He's
Oh,
going to do that now, folks. He got up to go ask someone else if they'd like to join the club.
oh yes, oh yes.
Here, live from New York, I can see the cars moving. We've got black and white screen behind you, but that's okay. That's classic.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. I mean, the reason we're here, tonight's topic started out as yet another ego defense superpower as a concept. And you've heard us talk before about what the ego defenses are. Up until perhaps just several years ago, they were the only way to gauge a person's maturity level um, in the hands of a psychoanalyst.
Mm.
Uh, be able to know what work needs to be done to encourage a person's personal growth. That would be a common term used to describe it. Or their emotional intelligence would be another way to describe it. The only way to have a gauge of low level, immature behaviors of all kinds that are universal and observed in every human ever born, all the way up to however high you can reach in terms of your maturity level, what are called the mature ego defenses. And then in between, there's the immature and the neurotic ego defenses. And by the way, somebody was trying to interact with me. A total stranger was trying to interact with me online earlier today, commenting on something I said about the Big Five. How
Okay.
I wrote, I said, um, just honestly speaking, the neuroticism aspect of the Big Five, being a fifth of five personality traits, never, always rubbed me the wrong way. Let's say, because it always seemed uh, like a wastebasket terminology to use for everything your quote model. It's not even a model, it's a data set, is all it is. And it's super powerful. It's a super powerful data set, but it's not a theory and it's not a model. It's
Hmm.
data set to the
That's
state.
interesting.
It is. That's what it is. It's from the internet. The age of the internet is what was required to even come up with it. And nobody came up with a theory of it to begin with. So it's not a theory. And neuroticism always struck me the wrong way as being one of the five categories because it accounts for every bad behavior there is, which gets back to what Jeremy and I are here for tonight to talk about the ego defenses. Um, but the other thing I realized in interacting with this person, because I had to explain to them that personality is not the same as character. Character has to do with maturity, which is what we're
Sure.
ego defenses. And personality is a style that
Hmm.
require a certain level of maturity. It's a style that begins with what you're born with, which is a temperament, and can grow
Yes.
to a personality over time. But it still is not a commentary on maturity level. And the neuroticism, from decades and decades ago, would have referred to a low character person, or at least
Okay.
not a high character person. Somebody with problems of their character, their decision making. And that just sort of struck me today as wow. Through interacting with this person, I realized, oh, the neuroticism category of the Big Five is kind of problematic, I think, given my age and my experience because of my age in my field, character is not personality. They're not the same thing. They're kind of mistaken to be the same. They're
Right.
interchangeably used as words or terms, but they're not the same.
Sure.
And eroticism does not refer to personality. So what is it doing in the big five?
Yeah.
It doesn't belong in the big five. So anyway, that's a little sidebar to our discussion tonight.
Well, no, I actually really like that because I think neuroticism is very affective based, whereas so affect meaning of emotion. And when we talk about um the other traits like openness, that can be that's kind of amoral or ineffective. It's not you can be I don't know, like what are the things we're measuring here? I think that's a really good point. Like openness, trait openness is one thing. Extroversion, you can be I mean, we have to say, is there affect involved in loading all of them? Like extroversion to introverts just get more nervous when they're around people easier. Some would say that.
Yeah,
Or or excuse me, introverts. Yeah, I meant to say. I think I said get more nervous with social interaction, and people that are open. Like, is there something affective and feelings based gatekeeping whether you're open or not, and how is neuroticism playing into this? So I get what you're saying. I think where it gets interesting is somebody with high neuroticism who's it was agreeability and disagreeability, right? Like that should be interesting in seeing if you're agreeable but highly neurotic, you probably say yes to people and fear upsetting them. If you're disagreeable and neurotic, you're probably the kind of person who gets in a lot of needless arguments and fights, right? So it would seem that agreeability or lack
right.
thereof plays a huge role. And how can we say that's character based? Because it can be, I think. It's
Well,
interesting.
it it is interesting, and I've gone in to a kind of a new exploration of the Big Five
Yeah,
surrounding this because since it's only a data set, and since I developed a model, a theory
yeah,
surrounding personality styles, and I applied in romance, but you can apply it in anywhere. Um, I took a look at the big five categories, and I couldn't perfectly place them into my system because what I think I'm guessing what you were alluding to earlier was that some of the categories like openness aren't purely emotional; they're kind of cognitive. Like
yes.
being open kind of is reminds me of being a right-brained person, and
Mm,
that's gonna have relevance to tonight's talk. Uh, Being a right-brained person is the more humorous person than a left-brained person because being right-brained, I like how it's jumped back and forth over the decades between, oh, there's no such thing as being left-brained or right-brained. That
right.
doesn't exist. The neurosurgeons did the stimulation studies of the actual brains during neurosurgery, and they don't directly correlate to being on the left hemisphere or the right hemisphere. And then some research articles I've read recently are now talking like, yes, the right hemisphere of the brain is responsible for for these aspects, creativity, artistry, and things like this.
Mm,
And the left brain is responsible for logic and reason and being analytical. But
right.
to get into tonight's talk, let's dive in to the nuggets involved
Let's
here.
shall.
Yeah, we decided that let's look at a superpower that is considered mature. And it
Mm,
kind of surprises some people because they might think, "Oh wow, that I thought that was immature." But the trait of humor and specifically wit, not just buffoonery, but humor, not
mm,
being clownish, but witty, intelligent humor, wit is a mature ego defense. And therefore, if the mature ego defenses are all potentially remedies or encouragement out of immature ego defenses, I started thinking, what would be one of the, let's say, immature, maybe not, it's not primitive, but it's in the immature category, one level up from primitive, which
Mhm.
is considered to be intellectualization, to um, to make up logical reasons why whatever it is you did is okay. Intellectualization. There's probably a lot of that happens in, when I was thinking of this earlier, I was thinking of blue collar crime and Bernie Madoff kinds of things.
Oh,
Y-
okay. I
Right?
see
Yeah.
what you're
Like,
driving at.
you get it? Like people they're doing logic based things like accounting, and then they use this logic related defense that is low character, not low character. It's not highest of character, but it's not primitive either. But intellectualization is making a rational, logical excuse for why what you did is okay.
Right,
You might cite research, you might cite logic, you might cite what you call common sense. You see it throughout the journalism industry. Like you can justify just about anything you could possibly want to say in journalism by intellectually explaining away the naysayers of
right.
any stance you want to take.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a very good way to conceptualize that. I mean, so you can think of different movies like Snowpiercer. Somebody asked on Facebook,
Oh,
"What are the greatest, train movie?" And I don't think this is I'm not willing to stand by this answer with any sort of cross-examination, but I thought of Snowpiercer because the whole movie takes place on a train. Have you seen that one?
I did.
Yeah.
I
So
did.
it's very, very good. I mean, there's a lot of humor there to tie it all together. There's a lot of dark humor because it's like life or death. The people and the cars toward the engine room live better and almost unbelievably better than the people toward the back. So
Ah,
in ways it's like Titanic with steerage where the people who are like lowest of the low rung economically are. Well, wow, that's a good correlation. So, but anyway,
yeah.
the intellectualization is, and sorry to spoil it, if you haven't seen Snowpiercer, you can take this as a cue to pause and watch it. But the, or if you can't now because we're live, then oh well, you can block your ears. But basically, when the hero reaches the proprietor, the conductor, the whatever, there's a lot of intellectualization about how this system's necessary, and it's very brutal when you think of it interpersonally. But then when you look at what's necessary and the numbers and the way of life, there's a lot of intellectualizing. So to go to your point of you can argue anything, reporting wise or what have you. I think we see that in movies that are dystopian, where and someone challenged me in the comments if you can find one that's not like this, but whoever the villain is, the architect in the Matrix works for this too. Whoever the villain is this sort of bureaucratic character who says, well, this is how the world has to be now, and you're childish for not understanding this and for not understanding that some people have to just be miserable. You need to see it in this way as a system versus
Hmm.
the people. So, yes, absolutely.
Right, right. Any kind of false intellectual credentials one could use,
Yeah,
or you could say it's intellectually punching down,
sure.
right?
Right.
It's somebody that has a legitimate, genuine question.
Yeah,
Um, Intellectualization is ultimately protecting their sense of anxiety that
yeah.
they have over a conflict or a conundrum, something they have to solve. And they're reducing their own anxiety by citing. Everybody does this who uses Google, actually. When they say, I researched it on Google, you know, I like one of the memes out there that says, no, I'm a PhD researcher, and unless you cross-checked multiple articles, read them entirely, read
Right.
the the bibliography and footnotes, read those articles too, and then made a hypothesis based on what you've read, then no, you did not research it on
Yeah.
anything. You didn't
Well, yeah.
research it on Google,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Well, and then you
But
can get some
that's
rationalization in there.
intellectualization, right?
Yeah.
Well, rationalization and intellectualization are going to be
Mm.
related to each other, right?
Yes. Right. Right. I like that. I mean, so if you're intellectualizing it, you're definitely pushing away from, emotional turmoil and affect by saying, um, by wording things in as you were mentioning earlier before before we went live, like characters who are pedantic or caught up in details and analysis. So there's that urge to analyze that, and to put something emotional into intellectual terms for intellectualization. And then for rationalizing, that's like finding a reason for something and saying, well, I'm not as bad as the next person. And so, what I'm doing or didn't do isn't bad. And so that's the distinction. Um, it's the person, in other words, anybody can rationalize, but intellectualization is really the kind of professorial, in real time, responding to emotion with words and shielding with words versus using words to cover up a mistake or something you want to
Ah,
believe.
yes. Okay, this makes sense. Then both are not mature, they're intermediate. They
Yeah.
are neurotic. So since we began talking today about neuroticism as one of the big five
Yeah.
personality traits, and it is not a personality trait, it's a character category,
Yeah.
meaning low character. That's why it's a wastebasket term, because being neurotic means not being of the highest character, is all it means. In fact, it's the vaguest of the four ego defense levels in terms
Mm.
of where does it fall? Because they say 70% of people have neurotic ego defenses,
Ah.
70% of humans, right? So that's way over a majority.
Yeah.
So it's the status quo for humans,
Sure.
and yet it's neither the highest level, nor is it
Hmm.
technically immature and primitive and juvenile. It's somewhere in between. So
Right.
so the big five personality traits or system, or what I would call it a data set,
Yeah.
then having the neuroticism as the category is like the vaguest category you could possibly have, because it relates to maturity level, not personality. And on top of that, it's a vague, hazy area where 70% of humans reside.
In the neurotic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in neurotic level ego defenses.
Yeah. I
70
mean,
70% of humans.
right. Right. Well, so, man, that's a great point. I mean,
Vaillant himself said
yes.
that.
Yes, he did. Well, does that really shock us? I don't find it shocking as a clinician, and I would hazard to guess that neither do you. Find it
It's
shocking that 70% of people are thinking that way.
it's not shocking, because otherwise there would be no therapy, maybe no psychiatry,
Yeah.
because those with the most primitive of primitive defenses would probably be in jail or maybe dead. And what does that
True.
leave?
Right.
So that leaves the neurotic and
Well,
maybe the
and to
immature to some
yeah,
degree.
and to not to be clear, I think if you live life with you can live a relatively good life with neurotic defenses. I will say that. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that you're bound to be miserable. That would be more primitive defenses only. And we see that in personality, or as you put it, character disorder. I'm giving you credit. Character disorders, where, not to say as you put it, like I don't agree, but as you have reminded us, character disorders with things like splitting right? I mean, splitting's unsustainable. You cannot sustain friendships or romance or a job, by
or
the
a
way.
job,
If
anything by
Yeah,
splitting.
if you
Yeah,
consistently lash out at your boss or coworkers or lover or friend or family as an enemy, like, you can't do that. But you
yeah,
can be an intellectual, um, pompous, stuffy person and live relatively well. Now, you might be the subject of a Woody Allen movie, or you might
yeah,
be the butt of jokes, but you could survive relatively well.
yeah, yeah. Makes sense.
Maybe not reach your
Um,
peak, but go ahead.
yeah, and that's the whole point of newer models like positive psychology, that we can be more than this
Right.
neurotic level functioning. So
Yes.
what I found, like a quick to the point definition of differences between these two, that you just explained, in a normal person language. No, you did.
No,
You
thank you.
explained it quite well.
I
But
love it. Thank you.
rationalization versus intellectualization is rationalization is you're doing something bad and you simply want to justify it. So you cite facts. And that could
Yes.
be journalists, accountants, it could be whoever who are
Just
doing
doing
that
my
things.
job.
But intellectualization is more like self protection
Sure.
against your anxiety over the emotionality of something.
Yes.
So you get unemotional and intellectual instead. So
Yes.
they're kind of
Yes.
related because they are both using logic and data and citing references and things like this, but they're for different purposes. One is to do wrong and get away with it without anxiety. The other is
Yeah.
just to not feel anxiety over
Yeah.
some issue that you have.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Well, and I just kind of view it like the intellectualization. It if you g- It's one that I think rationalization is often more.
That's
It
the
can.
Bernie Madoff. So
Yeah.
I was wrong. I was wrong earlier using Bernie Madoff as an example of intellectualization.
Okay.
Unless he was doing it for his own relieving his
Right.
own anxiety and grief and so forth. But he rationalized. So anyone who does the white collar crime stuff, that's rationalization
Yeah.
that they
So
tend to do.
I found the definition of intellectualization as distancing oneself from anxiety provoking emotion and concentrating on the intellectual components. And you just basically said that. I was listening, I promise. But what I like about that is if you do that, if you're doing it, so there's certain things where to do that very thing,
Yeah,
it tells about your personality or there's that word again, or your capabilities or your leanings. Like if someone says something particularly odd or upsetting at a dinner party, like, there's 2 options there, and one is, we'll say the most likely one first would be they just don't know the norms, and, like, it outs them as that. Like, it outs them that they don't know how you perform, how you behave at a dinner theater, right? They never went, and that's, of course, movie subject of fish out of water. But the second option is they did it on purpose, and they're trying to transgress some norm, and then they're so smart or they're so bored with the norm that they flipped around the other side. And that, again, like, you'll see that in different movies. People are just so tired of stuffiness. But I'm thinking with intellectualization, if someone is doing that, then that lets you know to an extent that they just think that way. Like, they like details and they like to get caught up in in logic. Like, if they're doing it at all, they think that way. Does that make sense?
yes, yes, and I think it's worth saying that these processes, these ego defenses, it's just brilliant because for the last 100 plus years, it's been all there has been in the toolbox of the therapist or psychoanalyst or psychodynamic therapist to be able to assess what level is a person functioning at,
Right.
and therefore how successful are they really going to expect to be, whether in
Yeah.
life or in love or in career. um,
True.
but the uh, the nature of these of these ego defenses is such that the less mature, the less conscious.
Yeah.
Let's put it
I
that
like
way.
that. I like
The
that.
more
Yes.
mature, the more conscious.
Yeah.
And this is why I always love the triune brain model as the master model in psychology to explain the three basic functions of a mind, one of which is the instincts, and that gets into evolutionary psychology. The
Right.
second of which is the emotions, that gets into all the psychologies we all know, like cognitive therapy, behavioral therapy, the original ones that post-date Freud by a little bit, but are um, more mainstream academia in
Yeah.
America
Yeah.
and the UK. That's the emotions. And then some of the latest ones that are new but very different from evolutionary psychology would be things like positive psychology,
Right.
existential therapy,
Yeah.
theory of mind stuff,
Oh, yes.
DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy,
Yeah.
all of the things that have more to do with leveraging your beliefs, um, how they affect your behavior. You're going to be conscious about it. You're going to set goals. CAT, cognitive analytic therapy, and BAT, behavioral activation therapy. Right? Let's
Yes.
go. Let's go for goals. Goals have to be conscious. They're not unconscious. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you don't call them goals. You're instinctually driven toward food and shelter and reproduction or something.
Yep. True.
Those aren't goals. Your instincts lead you toward those things. So I
Right.
love the triune brain model, and I line up the triune brain model with the four levels of the Allen films to higher brained, um, um, mature level ego defenses. They parallel the three brains. So that which is a primitive ego defense is an automatic behavior,
Yeah.
almost instinct like, or at least influenced by the instincts. Both males and females do the primitive instincts when they are small children, and they are reptilian in nature. They're instinctual, they're food driven, they are desire driven,
Yes.
they are forces and pressures and drives, the Freudian drives at that low primitive level, and are unconscious. Instincts are, by their very nature, defined as unconscious. We don't need to think about them. Our
Yeah.
bodies just do them. Our
Yes.
behaviors just do them automatically because they are instincts. But if you're at the higher brain level, also the highest level of the ego defenses, the mature ego defenses, are all of Martin Seligman's positive psychology, character virtues, which are also
Yes.
the Aristotelian, Nicomachean virtues
Sure.
as well. Courage, tolerance, patience, and then we wanted to say today wit or
Yes.
humor,
Let me throw
mature
something.
humor.
Yeah, just to throw something in
Go
on
for
that,
it.
I want to remember to say this. So, what's interesting about humor as we're talking about intellectualism and intellectualization, so intellectualization is going to be a very one person centered calculation where they've, counted the numbers, they've counted the beans, crunched the numbers, what have you. And if they can tell you that you can go on at length about it and maybe bore others, but think it's compelling just because it matters to them or it's related to them. But humor, and you brought up theory of mind stuff. So mentalization, or the ability to know what someone else reasonably is thinking or feeling, I think separates intellectualism and intellectualization from humor, because humor says, I'm going to say something in a way that is unexpected to you, that makes you laugh, because I can calculate when I say that, when I swerve this way and then I surprise you by going that way, you're going to laugh. and
I love
I'm gonna
that.
find it funny. But
I love that.
intellectualization, thank you.
I mean, to some degree, you make me think of reading the audience.
Yes.
You
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
know your audience, right? So
Yes.
you're mentalizing when you're doing that. So
Yes.
you have observing ego on board and working. You're present minded. You're attentional, and you're using that faculty that you're talking
Yeah.
about. Where somebody who intellectualizes or rationalizes is a little bit lower than that. They're maybe not reading the audience. They're reading
Right.
their list of academic excuses or
Yeah.
rationalizations for
Oh, I
things.
love that. No, no, I love it. I think that's where intelligent people can go very wrong is they have to realize well, and it's always a choice. Do you care what your audience thinks, or are you going to be absolutely devoted to getting at what you feel is right to say or right in that moment? And there can, of course, be great times to stand up and say, I'm going to share this. But if you're trying to build rapport or get a point across or get some sort of um, rapport with your audience and accolade like, if you're trying to build up your connection to explain your side or to introduce an unfamiliar topic to people, then humor is going to be the bridge that gets that across, and it's whether you care to do that or not as a human being.
I love that. You make me think of. I knew when we started talking, things would pop to mind that
Oh
were
yeah.
unexpected for me and interesting to me. Hopefully, to other people too. I hope I'm not intellectualizing,
Doubtful.
but
That's doubtful.
one that came up was I wasn't expecting to talk about the kinds of journalists, and I'm not saying what their political orientation is, any kind of journalist who is just a mean person out to make their way in the world at the expense of others
Dirty
because
laundry, that old song.
facts
Yeah.
well not just that, but facts can be presented in any kind of convincing way. Um,
True.
yeah, a persuasive way. Facts can be used in persuasive ways. Even false facts can be used in persuasive ways. And
Yeah.
unless, let's say, a journalist is doing a story about astrophysics and they're not an astrophysicist, they're a journalist, but they are covering astrophysics.
Sure.
If they go so far as to say, well, Newton was an idiot, Newton is just ridiculous, and I can cite Hayes, Hayes and Hayes, and Hayes, and Smith and Smith and Smith have stated people are saying that Newton might be ridiculous.
Sure.
I
Easy
mean,
for them to say. Yeah.
right?
Well,
But no, but they can if they say it seriously
yeah.
and without wit and humor. There's no wit and humor implied. They can cite, they can cherry pick what looks good or is even irrelevant that nobody will ever look up to to portray themselves as having some kind of wisdom in a field they don't know
Yeah.
but are reporting on or covering.
Mm.
So there's that. Now, the other thing I thought of were some of the people I used to watch on TV a decade ago, Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, who has like changed a lot since I used to watch him. Any comedian out there who is there's this new thing as of the last 15 years in television, 15 or 20 years, probably 15 years in television, where, oh, and Bill Maher is another example, where comedians are providing journalism and news, at least secondhand news, to the public in the most sought after ways by the public. And I wonder if their wit and intelligence compared with humor has something to do with how they are the most popular and maybe, and I believe trusted, the most trusted
Yeah.
sources of news have been comedians saying the news instead of some serious, straight laced from decades past, revered and respected Walter Cronkite, or
Right.
formerly Dan Rather before he was labeled bad, I think at some point, and maybe Tom Brokaw was labeled bad, and all these
Yeah.
other all these other more serious newscaster journalists were
Legacy.
labeled bad.
Right.
Legacy males were
Well,
labeled bad.
think about it. I mean, I would think about it this way. So the jester is an archetype of great power. The jester can speak truth in
Truth.
ways that no one else can. And I think that applies to people in their own lives, and they're fine hearing certain things from comedian. I would also say, I mean, now I'm it's psychological. So you could say, well, and this is a reach, but I'll grab for it. Is human capacity now for severity and somberness lower due to lower attention spans, due to lower grit, resilience, what have you? And so, do is it more palatable due to attention spans and grit, resilience, whatever, to get humor is kind of like sandwiching some humor and seriousness. I don't know. It's a thought. It would be interesting to discover, but I do think there's always. I think the market is high now for comedy news. You're right. It's grown. So clearly that it's something's hitting, as the kids would say, it's hitting right. But also, I think there's something to someone of great wit and intellectual capacity is able to notice what we would call incongruencies or discrepancies in our fields. Like, what are the discrepancies in what you're telling me and how you're behaving, or the incongruencies in therapeutic terms of you say you want this to be your goal, but you're doing the exact opposite. Let's talk about it. I think comedians are very good at being able to
Yeah.
see, well, this politician said this, did that. This celebrity said this, did that, and they make it humorous and they work in terms of pattern recognition. I think comedy, intellect and comedy both require pattern recognition and pattern disruption at tactical times, comedy more so. So
Yes.
basically, if you're sufficiently funny on purpose and can continue replicating it, you probably are very good at pattern recognition and switching it when you need to. And so it's such core raw intelligence we're talking about now. And so if you get good at intellectualizing and you understand social, like how to make people happy, or you have good social skills, you could really pivot into comedy probably. Um and vice versa. I think comedians are usually rather intelligent, at least on a verbal social level. So I think there's an inextricable link there. I mean, we could get on and on into how temperament affects it, because I love to disrupt dry stuff with comedy because I like to make people laugh and I like to vent out a little bit of
Yeah.
I like to kind of take the stuffiness out and then go back to being, facts. So pressure release. Comedy's a pressure release that way. I think if you want to reach a certain level of success, you need to be able to use it. But anyway, back to I'll hand it back to you on the news anchor thing. I think that's very interesting. Mars been
No.
doing it since the late '90s with politically
Yeah.
incorrect.
Yeah. And these are brilliant people, regardless of where they are politically. Who cares? Um, I remember. Well, first, let's double back to the fool, the
Yes,
trickster
the Jeff.
archetype, and all this. The jester. I remember way back in Chicago when I took uh, Second City theater training, acting training. I wasn't
Ooh,
with Second City. I wasn't in their troupe. I
no,
didn't
but
make
that's
it to
amazing.
that. But I took a lot of their coursework, and one of
Yeah,
them was, believe it or not, Shakespeare,
I
performing
believe it.
Shakespeare.
I believe it.
And oh my God, I had no idea Shakespeare includes punctuation and grammar to give stage direction within the words. Like you don't have to
Mm,
write to the
yeah,
side, exit stage right or exit stage left. It's built into the patterns of the words, the iambic pentameter, going off the pattern of iambic pentameter, and
yeah,
then periods and semicolons and things like this. And I was like, oh my God, what have I gotten into? This is interesting. But I remember one of the most notable things that the professor said, and the teacher said. He goes, the most powerful characters in Shakespeare are the fools.
yes,
They are the most powerful because no one can talk back to the king or queen but the fool can.
Yep.
The fool can
Absolutely.
dispense wisdom, and usually does dispense wisdom to the king or queen. So now you think of such very high IQ comedians as Bill Maher, um, Jon Stewart, even Dane Cook. Dane Cook, the college comedian, everyone who went to college in the last 20 years loves Dane Cook because he has kind of frat bro kind of humor, but
Yeah.
it's highbrow in its intellectual level.
Yeah.
I think he is a master of observing human behavior
Yeah.
and finding the humor within the everyday human experiences that are nonsense or frustrating, or we never stop to think what is behind that, but it's a
Yeah.
universal for all humans. He's really good at spotting that. So, like you said, it's pattern recognition. That's part of humor. High IQ is part of humor, I believe, because it's necessary to have equal, ample amounts of right brain, creative, comedic artistry ability, but also equal amounts of left brain structured timing ability.
Yeah.
Timing is a lot in humor too. So if you think of a Da Vinci, both an artist and a scientist, Einstein, both a scientist but not a bean counter, a
Right.
visionary, Steve Jobs, a marketing guy, visionary, but also incredibly organized. It's equal amounts of high amounts of left brain and right brain ability that equals IQ. In fact, we do verbal and visual IQ score, right?
Yeah.
That's literally the two halves of the brain that we're talking about there. So there's that. And then I wanted to make mention of the importance of going back to Aristotle. We were talking about Nicomachean ethics and the idea of character virtues are
Yes.
so ancient. They go back to Aristotle and before him. And now Martin Seligman and positive psychology is basically rehashing the same thing, which is Nicomachean ethics. And the idea, one of the ideas of Aristotle I love is the golden mean, the idea of the Aristotelian mean, where I love this. And this directly applies to this notion of ego defenses. We're talking about intellectualization or rationalization and the superpower that defeats those that's also in you, which is humor and wit. Aristotle described the Aristotelian mean, the golden mean, as being for every character virtue we pursue, because the ancient philosophers were looking at what makes a good person. What is good? What
Yeah.
is goodness?
Well,
How do I be a good person? And
quite the
why am I
question.
here? Why am I here? And what am I supposed to do while I'm here? These are the great questions. But what
Sure.
is a good person? He was saying character virtues. So for every character virtue, there is not just an opposite, but both a vice, two vices for every virtue is in Nicomachean ethics. So there's a virtue of deficit, which is obvious.
Mhm.
So a humorless person would be a boorish person.
Oh, yes.
But there's also a vice of excess of the virtue. So in other words, a virtue is balanced and moderate and measured. Perhaps the ideal politics would be perfect moderate, not extreme one way or the other. And the golden mean, the Aristotelian mean for humor is not anything being humorous. It is perfect humor is wit and it's intelligent and it's both creative, but it's also structured and it gives you reference points and it's disarming and it relieves you of your own faults and shame and anxiety because I get to perform it as the comedian for you. But I love that he says that there's there's two vices for every virtue. So if humor, according to George Vaillant and also Martin Seligman, is one of the mature ego defenses, the highest level you can reach as a person, how you conduct yourself in the world ought to have humor, then it would specifically be called wit. And according to Aristotle, it would have a vice, the opposite of a virtue. A vice is vicious. In theology, it's sin, it's sinfulness, it's wrongfulness, it's not being a good person. So a vice of deficit, which in the case of humor would be boorishness, being
Right.
humorless person. Nothing makes the person laugh. But there's also a vice of excess of every virtue. So an excess of humor, you might call buffoonery, being a
Yes.
buffoon, an utter clown, somebody who's trying to be funny really hard, but they're not really funny.
I met so
And
many people like that in my life, man. I hope I don't ever again, but that's how it goes.
whoa, what happened to you? Did you meet Jack Black?
Wow. You
Sorry.
wow.
I
You really
know,
want
I
to
know.
call out Minecraft on here so we can't get monetized by Minecraft the movie too. Yeah,
Oh
call me
man, I
more
don't like
bricks.
I was forced to go to Minecraft the movie, man. So yeah.
You
So I have
don't
a
like
thing against Jack
lava.
Black right now.
You don't like him?
Just because of the Minecraft movie.
La 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 lava. Chicken. Dude, I've seen
Chicken.
so many Jack Black clips from that movie. I it got well, that was the goal. It was great marketing. I was just I'm thinking of people who will just like really low hanging fruit puns are so unpalatable to me. I don't care for that. I do not
Yeah.
want that, Sam I am. Not with green eggs, not with ham. There you
I
go.
like dad humor though, because I am one and I use it a lot, and it's kind of all that's left of me after what you go through to reach this point.
Sure.
You end up with dad humor. But I kind of like how bad it is.
There you
I
go.
I I like making it as bad as I possibly can make it.
Well, there's a certain weaponizing of power to that is your audience has to endureth what
Right,
you
yeah,
deign to
that's
say.
right.
Yeah, no, I think that intellectualizing is also very dangerous, and I wanted to get this out and glad I remembered it. In dating, and I think now because you got me on the tangent of online journalism and whatever, putting together what is worth clicks. And so you can say, well, here are the intellectual reasons why, drinking alcohol is actually very good for you. And you could just have ChatGPT create you a litany of stuff and it would be like a glass of wine, right? So, but not to get drunk and have a bender and get a DUI clearly. But also with dating, people can have, the virtue and vice model there to tie it in as well of the virtue of being selective could go into the vice of being under selective, which we have seen throughout history, and we've seen people, choose poorly. But then you see over selectivity, and I think that's being propped up a lot by think pieces and articles about red flags and who you shouldn't date. And I think people now are armed that if they're not doing well in romance,
Hmm.
and it's because of certain behaviors they're exhibiting, like being too bitter, too mean up front. It could be reframed as, well, you know, that means that someone can't deal with your authentic you and they're not strong enough to hold you and they can't be the person you need. And those intellectual reasons are then used to protect from the emotion of like, I have to work on me. So
Yeah,
I
that's
think that's
intellectualization.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a huge example in my
Yeah, that's like,
culture, millennials and Gen Z. Go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, a recent, intellectual landscape opened up for me by opening myself to learning about narcissistic abuse within relationships, which I thought for it's been around maybe 10 years, I think, but really amped up in 5 years ago. And then COVID, it just exploded as topics of people's blogs and journalism and social media and everything. And I was always poo pooing the idea of learning about it because I was really, really well trained in the narcissism of an individual from a Kohutian, Heinz Kohut, Otto
Sure.
Kernberg sensibility, self
Right.
psychology. I was just trained to the max at that, and I love it. It's interesting. It's compelling. So I see all these blog posts saying, "Is your boyfriend a narcissist?" In Cosmo and things like this. And this is
Sure.
like 10 years ago. And I'm like, what you mean now people are now discovering what narcissism is and how it works? And it turns out that there was way more to it than just the narcissism of an individual. And by the way, guys, this is relevant to our talk because primitive and immature ego defenses carry within them a fair amount of narcissism in
Yeah.
the models we're talking about. Neurotic, a little less so, but enough to not reach your dreams, let's say, in your life. And then mature ego defenses are lacking in as much narcissism as possible.
Yeah.
So that's why it's relevant. But I had no idea that narcissism for the individual had perhaps become so rampant in society, and perhaps in part because of social media and because of the world of advertising and you're you're fabulous, everyone is fabulous, you got to be more fabulous,
Right.
so buy this product, and then everyone wants to be more fabulous. I didn't
Yeah.
realize there was so much interpersonal narcissism that has rules, conventions, terminology, some of which is just neologistic, but it's descriptive. Yeah,
Yeah.
like gaslighting. I was kind of resentful of the term gaslighting for years because I was like, well, that's a movie from the 1950s or something. Why are they making up some new psychology term
Yeah.
instead of just calling it manipulative?
Or it used to be called mystification.
Ah, yes.
R.D. Lang, the psychiatrist who had the commune with people who had schizophrenia, like he talked about a lot about that, and he linked psychosis to that. I mean, you could go on and on about that, but
Or
that used to be the term for it.
mesmerizing. Mesmer,
Yes.
the hypnotist.
Yeah.
I am going to control you and manipulate your mind. Yeah, I mean, I just always thought manipulation was the appropriate scientific related term that
Yeah.
reaches ground level for people. So why are they making up all these neologistic things like the narcissistic fog and the gaslighting and and triangulation and all that stuff? Well, it turns out that they are representing universal interpersonal dynamics that go on between people that
Yeah.
didn't exist as badly as it does today.
Right.
And I got interested about 2 years ago in learning, wait a minute, there's something more to this going on. I better learn more about what's happening here. And point being, it all does go back to how mature are you as a
Right.
person wanting to be in a relationship, and how mature is the person in question
Sure.
that you are interested in? How mature are they? And the more mature you both are, hopefully at a similar level, such that the relationship could last, has the potential to last. You both need to have a certain amount of, let's say, mature ego defenses mixed with some expectable neurotic things to work out over time.
Well, what is your I like this because there you've talked about games, like, are you playing the same game or a totally different game? So I think intellectualization says, well, so games are made up of words like points and um think like systems, phrases like Uno, you have to yell Uno when you're down to one card or it doesn't count. Like so with intellectualization, that's a game of
Yes.
deciding to play to refer to other people's feelings or your own as unnecessary and using your words as some kind of dark magic of and making it all a game and making it all um
The
something
Matrix
that
is a game.
the what?
The Matrix, the movie The Matrix is the game. Titanic is
Right.
an escape game. Titanic is a game. Gladiator is a winning and losing game and escape game.
Wow.
Any
Yes.
John Wick movie is a game.
Like that.
Oh, you made me think of Liam Neeson earlier. Liam Neeson was, you said you were talking about train movies. There are
Yeah.
tons of train motifs in action movies
Yes.
that illustrate
Yes.
this stuff. I just watched the latest and last, sadly, Mission Impossible.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Dead
Yeah.
Reckoning, or the end
Final
of all
Reckoning or
deadness,
what
Final Reckoning, the
yeah.
final
I think
deadness of
that's
all reckoning with Tom Cruise. And there's a train fight in that. And there's a train fight in the uh what do they call it? Equalizer movies.
yeah.
Um the trilogy
Yeah.
with Denzel Washington, right? One of them
Yeah.
is this giant train example of
Yeah.
all the drama that goes on a train. And also, there is a Liam Neeson movie called The Commuter. The Commuter.
Oh, I gotta check that out,
You got to check
dude.
that out. It's good.
Oh, also, Bullet Train,
Bullet
2022
Train.
action comedy.
Yes,
Watch it. Actually,
that's
I'm gonna go
right.
back and
Brad
comment,
Pitt,
yeah,
right?
that's the best train movie ever. I love it. I'm partial. I've only watched it once. I
No,
think
it's
it's
good. It's
amazing.
really good.
Yeah, I
But
thought it
anyway,
was
I
great.
don't know how we got into all this train stuff, but the idea is that
Snowpiercer and Intellectualization.
intellectualization,
I did that. Go ahead, keep going.
the ego defenses are thus far in psychology the only way to measure one's maturity level by the preponderance of what level of ego defense do they tend to use the most. If it is primitive, then no matter their age, they are very primitive in age. They are very young, like a toddler.
Yeah,
If they are immature in age, then they are preteen, maybe teen in age on the inside. If
sure.
a preponderance of what they use is immature, neurotic level, which both intellectualization and rationalization are, that's 70% of humans. Then they are medium maturity level, but they got a lot of growing to do. And that's most of us. There's a lot to be worked out for
Sure.
people in
Yep.
various areas of life. It's why there's therapy, there's psychiatry, there's education. Um, and then the mature ego defenses are what we are shooting for. They are the
Yes.
virtues. They are the best there is in humans.
Yes.
And Aristotle talked about them maybe first or early. And Martin Seligman has talked about them, and many other public intellectuals have more recently talked about the virtues for us to shoot for. And so, what we wanted to highlight today was humor and the nature of humor as the midline between there can be some structure, left brain structure, but if it gets too serious, it's no longer humorous and it's boorish and it's
Yes.
humorless, according to Aristotle. But there can be too much buffoonery. There
Mhm.
can be total right brain nonsense, which also is not humor. So wit is intelligent humor, and that is a superpower. It is a high level intellectual capacity and a virtuous capacity of the highest level in the ego defenses. And it is a way to nullify the over intellectualized um, person of either pedantry or one-upmanship or somebody using Machiavellian ways to one up people, win a debate by citing a bunch of sources and so forth. It's a way to defeat that person who is a less mature person, more of an intellectual narcissist, you would say. And before we got on here, I was telling Jeremy how I thought of intellectualization and wit or humor as being both very well portrayed in Woody Allen's masterpiece, Midnight in Paris, which shows the demise of Owen Wilson's character's marriage to Rachel McAdams, who brilliantly, in her performance, plays this absolute Karen, terrible person in their marriage, and he ends up with a French actress at the end. I forget her name offhand. But anyway, the point of me mentioning Midnight in Paris was that the Kevin Kline character, who is the ex boyfriend of Rachel McAdams, has no humor at all to him, and he thinks he's funny and he thinks he's witty, but it just everything falls flat and it's all made up stuff. He's quoting what sound like legitimate intellectuals as an art historian and art expert, and he cheats with Rachel McAdams. Sorry to ruin it for you. If you haven't seen it by now, you should have by now. So naughty, naughty to you if you haven't seen it. Um, but he's humorless, and Owen Wilson just has this natural comedic. Everything he does has a
Oh,
comedic
wow.
nature to it, right? And he's sad, he's depressed, he has to go into Paris's past to live in his mind, to use the ego defense of fantasy. It's an example of the ego defense of fantasy to escape the harsh reality and the anxiety and shame associated with it
By
while he's in
having
Paris.
a mental
But
breakdown.
by having a mental breakdown and thinking he's talking to Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald and all these people. But it's just a beautiful film in that sense that he uses that to get out of his narcissistic relationship to Rachel McAdams, and eventually resurfaces as uh, the same humorous character that Owen Wilson kind of is always playing Owen Wilson, just
A
a
wedding
naturally
crasher.
a Wedding Crasher, naturally funny guy. But he ends up, winning the beauty queen and ditching his eventual ex-wife after being assisted by Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald through his fantasy life in Paris. So it's a wonderful film to show the power of wit and humor in being able to survive the tough aspects of life and the anxiety provoking and shaming aspects of life. So that's wit or humor as a superpower.
Wit and witticisms. And how.
There you go. So again, everyone, welcome to our new Glasses Club.
Yes.
We will expect all participants in the future to wear similar black rectangular-ish glasses if
Yeah,
you are
yeah.
going to appear with us. So plan on that. Welcome to the Glasses Club.
I think that's amazing. And they can watch Titanic as well. We were talking about that. There's dark humor in that movie.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah,
There is.
yeah, we should. And we never even got to talk about Rob Henderson's little comment about the Titanic. That was great. I was into that, but maybe for another time.
We can
That's
always
a whole
discuss the Titanic
dating and
tomorrow.
marriage concept. Yeah.
A whole what concept?
Well, dating, marriage,
Oh,
boyfriend,
yes.
girlfriend, like
Yeah.
human romance. I mean,
Yes.
Titanic has got a lot to it. I mean, as a quick little preview, Rob Henderson aside, Martin Seligman, or no, not Martin Seligman, Martin Seeger,
Yes.
from University College London and the British Psychological Society. He uses Titanic as a just a stunning example of how masculine and feminine instincts exist because they existed regardless of demographic hierarchy socially on the Titanic, rich versus poor. I'm trying to remember the exact stats, but it was something like 97% of children were saved regardless of their demographic, their wealth. The same for females. And while not the majority, a vast preponderance of the wealthy males also perished in the tragedy of the Titanic. How could that be unless there was a masculine, feminine provider, protector instinct that kicked in automatically, unconsciously during that emergency, disaster, and tragedy? And why would the poorest females and children survive
It's a
unless
great
there was a provider protector instinct in males,
well,
regardless of their station, if you will?
true. Man, I don't wanna get on that boat. I'm glad
Yeah.
I wasn't
So
on it.
for another time. Yeah.
I'm not
I
on the boat. I refuse to get on the boat. I don't like it, and I won't get on anything named Titan because there's the sub also that
oh yeah.
imploded. I don't
Yeah,
and
that's
it was
right.
oh,
Why
yeah.
did that entrepreneur name it the Titan? What was he thinking?
No T names. No T names even. I'm
Yeah,
that against it.
that guy
Call it
had
the
maybe a
ultra
death
cool
wish.
submarine. What?
Maybe that guy had a death wish. I mean, he did everything wrong with that. He was using like rubber bands to to hold that thing together.
I
Have
think
you
that's a
watched the documentaries about that?
I have no
About
I
that
need to.
submarine?
I know that there were, like, numerous safety precautions that weren't followed. Well, here's the deal, though,
He
it's
was
the
ignoring them. He was
yeah,
ignoring them for the purpose of cost and reproducibility of going on these voyages, and he ignored science and engineering.
yeah. Well,
That thing
sadly,
was held together like with rubber bands, like I said.
what's terrible is, like, the Challenger exploded and decades ago, and it was found that it was probably some O-ring, was something that wasn't quite up to spec that was just shrugged off. And then we know what happened with that. But so the minor details on stuff that goes way into outer space or deep down into the ocean really matters. And I'm sure that we could create some great allegory for that about character and how our small decisions each day accrue and accrete into some grand personal uh legacy, but maybe we explore that later.
Yeah, maybe we could decipher the name of the ego defense involved with the Challenger disaster, the O-rings, something like peer pressure, right?
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
like scientific
Oh,
peer pressure,
groupthink. That was groupthink.
groupthink,
There's a term for that. Yeah. It's like when
groupthink.
people
Yeah.
well, I think that becomes denial. I think it becomes group denial where you deny for me, I deny for you. We all together hold hands and say la la la, we're not listening. Right?
Uh,
And that becomes, I
yeah.
think, similar to how tyranny develops is like, well, we have
Hmm.
someone make the policies for us, and then they're doing it, but it becomes very interesting to see human passing off of responsibility ad infinitum, exponentially, because it's
Like
done. It's
somebody
something
else, it's got to be okay because somebody else must have figured it out, or
yeah,
it wouldn't have
yeah,
gotten this far. I guess it is denial, but I think it's multiple ego
yeah, probably.
defenses operating there.
Yeah. Yeah, and social loafing is a big one that you used to hear about. I remember hearing about that in social psych, and it's like when people won't do their part and they just assume someone else will, and I mean, in college, when it was group project time and you've got somebody who's like, "Yeah, I'll throw my slides in," and they wait, or it's bad, and then the rest of us have to say, "Yo, you need to do this because 'cause we're not going down
Right?
with you."
Did anybody like not do any work? Like they all deluded each other and said,
No,
"Yeah, I'll
thankfully.
do it." Okay.
Well, it's a game of conscientiousness, and I remember I had a colleague in college, and he was just an interesting guy, like, he didn't really do the work. I did my part for sure, and so we
Yeah.
divided it, and then, um, it's no secret I enjoyed school. I'm sure that surprises absolutely 0 people, but, um, then when we get together for this presentation, it was freshman year, I remember this, he stood off to the side while we were all talking and sharing our parts, like, and he was, like, gesturing and interpreting. It's like and then the professor was like, "Why was he doing that?" I was like, "I don't know. I'm not owning that." And I knew this professor, we had good rapport, so it didn't impact me, but it's like, "All right, so, I don't want to ever be in a project with this guy again." That's how reputations are built. Like, that's college is the junior field for that, I think, where it's like, I didn't ever really wanna talk to that guy again, to be honest. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He completely took it as almost a literal joke, like, "I don't wanna work with you. I don't think that's cool, dude. Like, this is a big deal." So, anyway, bad use of humor. His humor, it wasn't even funny. Don't throw away a project
Well,
to do
that was
side thing.
buffoonery, clownishness,
Oh, yeah.
right? Yeah,
I have a
yeah.
soft spot for dry humor that whiffs of cynicism. I'm sure again that surprises absolutely no one who knows me, but the buffoonery of the ill-prepared, unconscientious clown is deeply unappealing to me on any level. So, and there you
But
go.
you kind of acted earlier like maybe you do like Dane Cook. Do you like Dane Cook
I
as a
think
comedian?
Dane Cook. Oh, are you calling him that bad?
No,
Okay.
no, he's not.
Um,
I think he's absolutely like under recognized for his brilliance at noticing human universals in behavior and turning them into humor.
yes, no,
I think as good as or better than the best there are.
yeah, I actually, well, so now that you mention that, I think one of his, I was trying to find the movie that was from, and I found it. Um, but when he was in My Best Friend's Girl, uh, which he was in, it's interesting. He was in Good Luck Chuck and Best Friend's Girl, which are similar kind of romance comedies. But in Best Friend's Girl, when I was giving you the earlier example of someone who transgresses a norm, and they're either so bored, like they don't even understand the norm, and then people who do it on purpose because they get it, like that's what Dane Cook's doing in My Best Friend's Girl. Is he consciously does stuff that's like bad. He knows
Right,
it's bad, so he does
right.
it toward the end of the movie. I believe it's this movie that he does it in, and he I don't want to go through, but I think it's this one. He says something very noticeably bad to, like, I think it's the bride's mother, and she, like, because he thinks this will get me kicked out. He's trying to get kicked out, and he says something
Right.
really inappropriate, and she actually says something. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where she, like, says something, and he's like, "Oh, she's down with it. She gets that I'm joking," and so he has to up it and be even worse.
Right.
So that's
Right.
the kind of social game I was thinking of earlier of, like,
Right.
the person who knows that they're being boorish and is doing it for a reason. Well, Saul Goodman played amazingly in the Better Call Saul series by Bob Odenkirk. He does that a
Yeah.
lot. Like he makes
Oh
people
yeah.
hate him on purpose,
Yes.
which is a
Yes.
next level. It's not the narcissist usually. It's not the person borderline personality disorder. It's the
It,
person who is
it's
seeking
wit.
an end. The what?
Yeah. It's wit.
Right.
It is wit.
So
Bob Odenkirk. Nobody.
yeah,
Nobody. Nobody one and nobody two.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's interesting. Saul Goodman's a great character. He's definitely not a narcissist. I don't think he's a narcissist. I think he's like a wayward. I think he's like I can't. I never finished the series, and so I need to actually watch it. I know that's like a cardinal sin of good TV viewers is not to have watched that one through.
Yeah. That
But
and Sopranos, right?
oh, Sopranos, I
And
finished. Sopranos is
Mad
great.
Men.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Tony Soprano is very likely psychopathic. I mean, that's just where that is.
Yeah.
So, but he makes for good viewing. That's why his therapy didn't stop him from committing vile acts, right? Because his character was still going to stay the same. That core was not. He was going there for anxiety symptoms, really. He was
Right.
not going there for transformational character development. And so, anyway, God, we could do a whole episode on that. We probably should. So, but
Yeah.
I don't know if you have to be off to another.
I do.
call
I'm
here.
I'm off to elsewhere. But
Yep.
I'm really grateful for all you guys who showed up to our new glasses club here.
Thank
All
you.
right, I'll stop milking that. That was probably good just as a one off. But wow, yeah, there's so many people commenting here. Didn't
Yeah.
even
Oh, I got
get
there's a lot of good
to all of
questions,
you.
dude. There was one about what about people who talk too much about their I don't want to misquote it, but Mr. Majesty, the Dane Cook. Yeah, Geraldine, don't be too shocked by Dane Cook. He's wild. Um, yeah, we had some good ones. We had I'm not getting it in play anymore. That was fun. Yeah, this is I don't want to freshman algebra. The movie sucked though. Oh, well, you know what movies I'm not I have to figure out what movies I enjoy. I enjoy quite a few, but um humorous wanted movie.
Laura A is on here. Laura A from so far back.
Oh, cool.
I knew Laura A in beginning in probably 2009,
Oh, nice. Nice to meet you, Laura.
and she is back, and she is friends with Michael from Australia and Geraldine as well. So you three, or if Laura you can't go, that's fine too. It was good connecting with you today. I am going to go over to the paid monthly members
Yeah,
live interactive Zoom where we actually can talk directly to each other, not just text.
yeah,
And so thank you for being here, Jeremy. And going to move on over there for those of
yeah.
you who are monthly paying members.
Yes, and I wanna talk about dwelling on childhood trauma too much in another episode. I think that was a good question. That was really good because there is such a
Yes,
thing as not moving on. I really wanna say, there's ways to be kind to clients about that and help them with EMDR. So, all right, very cool stuff.
Natalie Martinek recently wrote something really fantastic, an article
I
about
bet she did.
closure in anything, relationships, therapy, whatever it is, a job,
Good
um,
topic.
every aspect of closure. That was good too. So,
Love it.
well, good. All right. We'll talk soon. Thanks, Jeremy. All right. Good
Tip of
night.
the glasses. Yep.